Hello and welcome to the All Walks of Life podcast. My guest on the show today is Akshay Jain. He's the founder and managing director of Namo eWaste Management Limited. It's a pleasure to have you on, Akshay. How does it feel like to come on a podcast? You were just talking about this briefly. Okay, this is your first experience. You've done many interviews and those kind of things before, but it's your debut in the podcasting space, let's say.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ishan. I have been a big fan of podcasts. I think it's quite informative. These things. It is, yes. I'm recording my first podcast here, and I hope that it's going to educate our audience.
That's for sure. That's for sure. That's always the intention. So you are the founder and managing director of Namo eWaste. So let's just start from the most bare basic of things, because the manner in which the listeners in my podcast generally listen to, they could be people who might be really having a good understanding of this particular space, like the e-waste space, or there could be people who are total newbies as well. So this might sound like a very rudimentary or a very basic question, but what is e-waste to you, and how do you sort of see it?
Yeah. So anything which was running on electricity, which was functioning on electricity, either by a battery or a direct power source. So at the end of the life, these products become e-waste. Electronic waste, e-waste is just like a common name for electronic waste. So anything that you see in your household, or in your daily activities, the kind of electronic dependency that we have right now in our lifestyles. So all of these products, after their end of life, they become e-waste. And why this has been categorized as a hazardous category of waste is because e-waste contains toxic elements which are otherwise not hazardous to you. So, for example, we are in a room surrounded by electronics. So, as is, these electronics are not hazardous for us. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been sold. But at the same time, e-waste or electronic items, they have precious metal and semi-precious metals. So, when these metals are recovered during the informal recycling process, this is where the the hazardous elements are omitted from it. So the process of recycling of e-waste is the hazardous one, not as such a product is hazardous. And that is why this term has been coined of e-waste, and why there are set of guidelines and rules around the world to manage this e-waste after the end of life of these products.
So this is something that you've sort of talked about a lot of things over there, and we'd like to go into that as we get through the conversation. But just for example, let's start off like where with your background and things of that sort. Why was this, let's say, an aspect of fascination for you? Like, why the e-waste space as such, and why did you want to sort of work in this area? Was there a problem you saw in society not being tackled, or what was the reason?
Yeah. I started reading about e-waste, my initial days of research, from 2012. So, of course, at that time, it was a very, very new topic for India. There were hardly any Indian companies doing some, substantial work in this space. So, I wasn't really motivated from the very first go to do e-waste only. There were many career opportunities. Of course, I was looking to do something into sustainability. I come from a background where my family is involved in the business of metals and metal recycling. So, of course, I have an inclination. I had an inclination towards sustainability. So, I was going through a lot of business models. There is tire recycling, plastic recycling, rubber recycling, and other things which I considered as a career choice. But e-waste, this in particularly, got my attention simply because India is the fastest growing consumer electronic market in the world. We are a country of young population, and young population, it's like they very rapidly change their lifestyle or enhance it, rather. So because of that, I see a flood of electronics coming into India. So in 2012, there were other things which are which came maybe after 5 years. But there were other things in the market, like digital photo frames, which has just started coming in. So I saw this revolutionizing, at some point. And I did my masters from UK. So there also I got to see that this problem was starting to build up, and they are far ahead in terms of technology thinking. And also in recycling, it's the same, because when the problem arrives first, so also the solution arrives after that. So this was happening, and in UK in 2012 they didn't have enough resources or enough recyclers or enough capacity, formal recycling capacity, to manage their waste. So the developed countries, especially European countries and American countries, they were disposing their e-waste illegally to African and Asian countries
Countries.
which were underdeveloped. So I think a lot of activism also happened around this, that these countries should not be disposing their hazardous waste like this. So I saw this problem actually evolving in UK, and I just related it to Indian scenario. Like,
Hmm.
if it is a problem in UK, what it would be in India,
For sure.
because they have a much better recycling infrastructure.
Hmm.
Because recycling infrastructure does not just require a great processing facility or a recycling facility. It starts from reverse logistics. So the waste has to be collected from people, from households, and then brought to a recycling mechanism, and then it gets recycled in the final stage. So as far as setting up of a facility is concerned, I think there are many people or many investors who would be willing to do that. But to get to feed that facility with the collected e-waste from the
Hmm.
organic sources, that is a challenge for recyclers all over the world. So India in 2012 was like very new to this. The electronics had just started to coming. I think around 2010 onwards, when the Geo
Yeah.
network came in,
Revolution.
and
Yeah.
this is where the Indian mobile phone industry got
Hmm.
revolutionized. And this is where people actually got the access to 4Gs and internets on
Yeah.
their smartphones.
Exactly.
And after that, I mean, the figures are there that
Hmm.
e-waste is growing at a 15 to 20% compounded annual growth
Oh
every
wow.
year after that. So yeah, I was just analyzing all this data, the statistics, and which led me to uh, be interested into e-waste recycling. And then of course there is a natural attraction towards precious metals, that e-waste contains gold, silver, palladium, platinum, and all those
Hmm.
resources which are extreme. So uh, I mean, there were other things as well which I could have done, but e-waste, since simply because of the nature of the concern,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
that it is a deep big concern, and also there were lack of solution, and then at the same time there was opportunity in this. So that is where I made up my mind that this is something I would like to take on as a challenge,
Right.
because it was a huge challenge. It still remains to be. There are many challenges that we face. I think we're going to discuss it in detail later. So I think I saw both challenge and opportunity
Right.
for choosing this domain.
So, as you just said, there's so much we can sort of unpick over here as well. Like you, I think in another interview of yours, I've also sort of heard you sort of say that there should be a lot more entrepreneurs, not just the e-waste space as such, but like the whole waste management system. Like you were talking about before, sort of venturing into e-waste, there were so many other things you were considering. And something that comes to mind, and I know Namo is pretty sort of ardent on that they sort of want to promote, let's say, awareness about like being responsible and being sort of just knowing where your sort of product goes after you sort of use it. But even let's say leaving aside e-waste, what I have sort of seen, and maybe you can give me a comment on what you sort of think of it. Many of these complexes and many of these places where we are asked to segregate waste as well, just normal waste, wet waste, and sort of dry waste. I think many people don't even know of that.
Yeah.
And even the ones who do segregate it, I'm not so sure that is it actually being segregated when it actually reaches the landfills. So can you speak a little bit about that? Just the consciousness that perhaps Indian society has to develop or has to sort of take into consideration when looking at waste.
See, I think somehow we lost the consciousness.
Hmm.
So, if you look at the ancient Indian practices or the traditional Indian practices, so even in the when they dug up the Mohenjo-daro, that civilization, there was sanitation. They actually saw how they were managing the wastewater. It was way before people actually knew how to live in a community.
Hmm.
So India was far ahead. Now you look at the rules we have going around the holy places. Like if you have to enter a temple, you need to wash your feet, wash your hands. So hygiene
Hmm.
has been an important part of our culture. Even in the households, we have certain areas or a certain or a specific puja room, that everybody leaves as a clean space. you can't even enter with your footwear
Or without having a bath or something.
without
like that.
having a
Yeah.
bath in it. So there were rules around it. I think we somehow lost consciousness as a society. Um, Also empathy. It just happened to us. But see, I'm an optimistic person. So where we are right now, I think all the Western countries were at the same place some 30, 40 years back. If you go back to Second World War time, I think London was polluted, like badly polluted. There was no good air to breathe. So, I think it happens because of the development. So India, because we had our own struggles. And, so from, I don't think 80s to early 2000s, anyone thought about, these things. The whole focus and everything, the consciousness was towards development. And, developing and development at the cost of environment and other things. So I think that is what has happened. But, these things can be quickly turn around. Like, so this particular, nowadays we see this particular government came in and they started a few initiatives. There is no measure to, check whether how successful these initiatives have been, but they've definitely started a debate or a talk in the society. So that is collective consciousness.
Yeah, of course.
I think so. These initiatives only, you talked about how we do awareness drives and all those things. I think these are the initiatives that can be taken for raising the collective consciousness of the society.
I think this podcast will sort of help in that direction as well. But sort of just to sort of blend into this whole collective consciousness that we are sort of looking to build in Indian society, can you talk about some of the sort of problems that are there in, let's say, the whole e-waste recycling or lack thereof industry? Because you were telling me just before, sort of in the few days we've interacted, that I think only 3% of India's e-waste is actually recycled, and 97% is still done through the informal sector. And if the numbers have changed, I may be wrong, but can you speak a little bit about that, like the whole politics of how all of this sort of unravels?
So I think yes, it's really unfortunate that India is just recycling maybe 3 to 5% of waste in the formal sector, whereas at the same time we have examples in the form of Japan, Germany. These countries have a recycling rate of over 97%. So it's like a complete opposite.
It's pretty much a circular economy.
Pretty much the circular economy. So in India, I think the problem is also that like traditionally we are a people who value their waste. So every house has got a little room or a little space where we are keeping our old things, which starts from collection of cartoon boxes to plastics, your wrappers and your newspapers, or it could be old books, your old copies and all those things. So what as Indians we expect is that we expect a price, for these things. Like we are not letting
Letting go of these things very easily,
things very easily without exchange of anything. You must have seen that there is a Bartan wala who comes in and he would take your old clothes and give you a new piece of utensil. It could be anything, but we Indians expect something
for sure.
in exchange.
Or like we pile up the whole list of newspapers for you to get some sort of change from it.
And this model works perfectly if the waste is not hazardous. Like, paper waste, it is the best collection model in the world. You won't see any facility like India where somebody will come to your doorstep, pay you. Had you been living in any other country, you would have taken it to a recycling facility, waited in a queue for maybe some time and then dispose it. Whereas you get, but now coming to the hazardous waste, this is urban waste, first of all. These things were not into existence like 20, 30 years back.
Right.
So it is a modern day problem. It is a problem for the current generation. And it is the responsibility of the current generation to deal with this problem so that, the future generations, they are left with something. Firstly, we have to think that, it's just again related to your consciousness that, this product after the end, if it's no longer of use to me, this should go to an authorized recycler or a person, who can take care of this in an environment friendly manner. So as a user, it brings a lot of responsibility on individuals. And this is where, the other communities or other countries, they have that conscious, in the consciousness in the people. Recently, I was watching something on FIFA World Cup where there were Japanese fans cleaning up the stadium after everyone has left, and Japan got defeated in that game.
Oh,
And they
wow.
were in a foreign country, but they were actually not just like 2, 4, 5. There were, I think, around 20, 30, 40 Japanese citizen. After a devastating defeat, they were still wanting to clean up the place before leaving. So I think that is why Indians they need to know that first of all, that's why knowledge is important. We can't actually question the consciousness of people also if they don't have a solution.
Hmm.
They have to firstly know that this particular waste is hazardous and how it is bringing that damage back to them,
To society, yeah.
to the society. So once they are aware, once they are on course with the the whole this thing model, so they get on board. Like if you go and tell a parent that this, that what 20, 30, 40 rupees you are getting in exchange for your e-waste, that would pollute the environment, and that's gonna ultimately harm your children. So no
Then
parent
no one's gonna, yeah.
will ask for that 40, 50, $100 from the kabadi wala. So I think people need to be taught firstly. Now let's come to like people is one thing, but still in the biggest consumer of electronic goods is government, and they're also the biggest generator of e-waste. Like it's proportional. Whosoever is the
Of
biggest
course,
consumer, they
yeah.
would be
The biggest, yeah.
biggest generator of
Of
e-waste
e-waste as well,
as
yeah.
well. So we have leakages there. Government is using 55% or more than 50% of e-waste is coming from the government agencies. Is that regularized? Yes. But then that waste is again spilled into the market from formal channels to informal channels. And the government, they are auctioning their e-waste, which is, I think, in my opinion, is just mad. I think it should be only given to a company or to an organization which show promise, which show world-class technology, which show efficiency in recycling.
Right.
But the government itself is auctioning their e-waste. Now coming to B2B section, the top corporates. So they have a different set of standard for India and other countries.
Yeah.
Like a same multinational would be paying 5-6 times of the price for compliance in Europe. When
Right.
it comes to India, they would be negotiating. They would be just wanting to just fulfill the compliance, so that their business does not get affected.
Affected.
They are not willing to do it in a way so that it really has an impact on the society. So that willingness is still lacking. The government has done its bit by bringing in the laws. They have given responsibility to various stakeholders, but the implementation part remains in the hands of people. And also recyclers like us, they are a very important stakeholder in the whole system. So as a recycler also, I have to choose between a money making opportunity and what I really stand for.
Right.
Because when I started working in this domain, my motivation was not really to make money. I always knew that money follows good work. So you have to do something good. And my agenda till date remains to be that, I am doing something to protect this environment. My effort is to, reach out to maximum number of people through various initiatives, and, just to raise their consciousness about what happens to their e-waste, after you dispose it. And in the course of that, I have come to various situations where I have to choose between ethics and business. And I cannot say that I am the only one who is doing
On
it
the
in
same
this
page,
way.
yeah.
Of course, there are other people, but as a businessman, it is sometimes very difficult to choose like which part to take.
Sure.
So this is where so ultimately it remains in the hands of
Of the consumers.
of the consumers, that what you can do. The government is of course bringing in the changes, bringing the law, but that might take a lot of years. But to reach to a level of Germany or Japan, I think we have to act
From the individual to the
together.
level of the individual, yeah.
together, and
Yeah.
everybody in the value chain, each stakeholder should take its own responsibility.
Yeah.
And make sure that there is no spillage
Yeah.
from my end. And this is where the common consciousness, this is how the common consciousness can be raised.
Can develop. So you've talked about that there are sort of these toxins in so when we for example buy a phone, that's not hazardous on its own, but the e-waste process, if we don't go through the formal sectors, can be hazardous.
Yeah.
So I think many of the people who were probably watching this for the first time or hearing about e-waste in such detail as well would probably not know, and you've been sort of hinting at it as well, that if you sort of go through the informal sector, there are sort of these implications it might have on society. So now, what are these implications? Because many people, I don't think, would know about those as well. So, for example, you can talk about the effects on the soil and so many other things. Obviously, you'd be in a better place to comment. So, what are these detrimental effects that society is undergoing because of the informal sector that we are making use of?
Sure. So, are you aware of the CFC gases?
The CFC, the no,
The CFC gases are used in the refrigeration products,
okay,
for the cooling purpose.
right,
So, these gases are really dangerous for ozone layer. Like they're one of the major factors behind ozone layer
Depletion.
layer depletion.
Oh, wow.
The refrigeration gases. So the difference between informal recycling and formal recycling process is that informal recycling would simply chop off the air conditioning pipe or the duct and take out the gas like in the air. So uh, it is a big hazard. Whereas in the formal recycling process, so whatever refrigeration devices come to us, we first extract the gas out of them without any kind of leakage or spillage. We have a very strict procedure. It is done in a very closed and protected environment, and that entire gas is restored into a cylinder, which is further reused. I mean, it can be reused or it can be incinerated. But in India, again, we are there are people who are willing to pay you a good price for
Okay.
it because it is not a waste.
Right.
It can be reused. So similarly, you have other elements like foams in the refrigerators. So in the informal process, they'll just take out the foam and burn it, and again causing big health hazard. Like all these materials I'm talking about, mercury, cadmium, arsenic, which
Right.
are there in e-waste. So what the informal recyclers do is they just leach the precious metals off the surface of e-waste. For example, let's say printed circuit boards, they have gold and palladium on their layers.
Right. Yes.
So the common technique by the informal sector, how they use it is they'll just wash it off with the chemical, emitting various hazardous, toxics
Toxics.
into the atmosphere. Whereas when it is done in a controlled process, this becomes a huge source of precious metals. So that is why we have a term called urban mining.
Okay.
So this e-waste recycling is actually can be seen as urban mining, where we are recovering these metals at a much more lower cost and much more lower impact on the environment
Right.
compared to mining of these metals.
Of course.
I'll give you an example of aluminium. Aluminium is extracted from bauxite ore. So the process that is used to extract aluminium, it consumes 70 times more resources than aluminium recycled in a furnace.
Oh, wow.
70 times the less the impact on environment. So that is the difference between formal and informal recycling. In informal recycling, all these factors are not taken care of. The focus there is to just extract the value, and whatever is left, you either burn it, leach it, dispose it in the soil. Once they are done using the chemical, they'll just simply put it in the drain. Whereas in a controlled, in a environment friendly process, of course we are looking to get maximum recoveries,
Of course.
because otherwise will not be sustainable against the
Yeah.
informal sector. But at the same time, the more focus is on how to erase any kind of hazard, how to like minimize the hazards that are coming out
Being
of it.
invented, huh?
So again, I am not against informal recycling. I think before the formal processes were born, these guys have been doing it. Otherwise, we would see piles of e-waste around
Right.
us.
Of course.
So these people have been in existence before the formal mechanism. But I think now is the time that we cannot afford this informal mechanism anymore as a society. So that is why we are making them a part of our collection network.
Right.
Like, we are not against informal sector. We are motivating them that you are the best at collection, because you have that capability to go door to door and collect it. But then, and again, e-waste as such is not hazardous. Like, they can collect it, they can store it.
Right.
The hazard comes when they actually start processing it.
Right.
So whenever an informal recycling process is applied, this is where the emissions start. So I think so that is why we are incorporating this informal sector into our collection network. And they are doing their job, which is bringing the waste, collecting it from the
Exactly.
consumers, and aggregating it. And we are doing our job, where we are recycling it in the most sustainable manner possible.
So can we that sounds great, because obviously you've touched upon like a strength, because that's one other thing, that some going down door to door and actually collecting the e-waste is another sort of task in itself. But can you talk a little bit about the whole process? So for example, you as a company, like when Namo does get e-waste, so what is the next procedure? Like, what do you do with that? So I'm guessing it sort of differs from product to product as well, if it's a laptop, if it's an air purifier or something of that sort. But in a general scenario of things, what happens? Because I know you guys are into re-engineering and reusing as well.
Yeah.
So is that ideally what you try to do? If there is a product which is in some sense working condition or semi-working conditions, you try to sort of bring it up to working conditions. Like, what are the different steps you guys take?
Yeah, so that's the first step of recycling.
Right.
Whatever can be reused, because this is the least polluting
Of course. Yeah.
step. So yes, whatever assets we receive, it is first segregated into working and non-working assets.
Okay.
So for the working ones, they go through a quality check, and we have to analyze the cost of repair that is involved. So, because of course, the point of view that we always have to keep as a business entity is that we need to protect our economic interest
Of
first.
course.
So everything cannot be repaired or refurbished, because sometimes the cost of repair is higher than the there is another product available at a cheaper
the same
price. So
yeah.
the feasibility of the process is not there. So mostly we are attempting refurbishment on IT products, which are your laptops, computers, servers, and all those things. So I think in this space, about 60 to 70% of the products are still, they can be reused. Their life cycle is enhanced when they're refurbished. And then the product becomes, as good as the new ones.
Yeah.
They're available at just 30% of the price of the new product, much more affordable. And I myself have been using these products, and
They work well. Yeah.
they work absolutely fine. I think it's just the psychology, and in India there are a lot of people who still can't afford these things, and I think for those underprivileged people, this comes as a real blessing, because especially after COVID in the last 2 years, we saw the demand for these second-hand electronics. It just
It's
boomed,
increased. Yeah.
because everybody wants a computer for their children, because the whole education has gone online
Yeah.
and things like that. So I think refurbishment is the first stage of recycling, and it's an amazing process. Now that with the new rules of e-waste, which have just come in 22, like recently, and in this the government is also motivating people for refurbishing and reuse. So it comes as a very welcome move. Earlier it was a gray area in the country, but now they've very specifically mentioned the rules and responsibilities for a refurbisher, and it is coming under the formal mechanism. Now, coming back to our process, so first is refurbishing. Now, whatever products can be refurbished or reused, they are taken out. We have a different mechanism where each product goes through its own quality checks, and then it is sold back to the consumers. So we are not doing retail sale, because it doesn't really suit our business model. So our retail sale to the consumer would be only about 10 to 15%, whereas 80-85% that is going to the dealers. There are IT dealers which come from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, and they would buy a few products and come back again within 7-10 days. And so it is that kind of a business model, but it's a very good business as well. Now, what cannot be reused goes for dismantling. So dismantling is the first step towards recycling. and that we are doing mostly manually, because this is where India has different kind of opportunities compared to other countries. So in Europe, because of lack of manpower or expensive manpower, rather, so everything is put through a shredder mechanism. So
Yeah.
whatever material comes to the facility, it is just shredded, and then it is sold as different metals or different things. But in India, I think we are extracting much more value by manually dismantling these products.
Oh wow. Okay.
So we
Yeah.
can we sometimes go on to like taking out the components which can be reused in something else. So first stage is dismantling, where we take out various commodities, like let's take an example of a television. So you just manually dismantle the whole television. So plastic will come out, glass will come out, uh, little printed circuit board, wires, iron, all these things come out in the first stage of dismantling. Now, iron. Uh, after dismantling, uh, 80% or 90% of the e-waste is already managed. Like
Right.
what we get out as a product is just clean commodity. For example, when we are dealing with metals like iron, aluminium, they're just being sold as is to the foundries, or there are a little bit of value addition that is done on them and sold to the foundries. Now, third stage is recycling, where there the where the challenge is
Realize.
is really there, and this is where again most of the value of e-waste also lies. So we have to be very careful. So we are extracting precious metals like gold, silver, palladium in our process. We are the only company which has collaborated with Ministry of Electronics.
Oh wow. Okay.
And we have acquired their technology, which is developed by the Indian scientist, which is just at 25% cost of a foreign technology. And we are the first and only company to collaborate with them on this project. It has been really successful. So in this process, we are taking out these precious metals from the printed circuit boards, uh, and then what once these metals are extracted, the leftover hazardous part of the waste is carefully dumped to the disposal sites, where
Right.
we as a recycler have to pay for the disposal of these things. So that is how the business works. We get out the valuables in the form of metals that can be sold, because these are just commodities,
Right.
and the hazardous part is dealt with in the form of disposal to the TSDF facilities or dumping facilities which are approved by the government.
Right. In the dumping facilities, is there, because again this is just my take from the outside, maybe you'd know more being in this sort of industry or something, isn't there like another politics that happens over there? Because many of the landfills, so with the example I was giving earlier, that in many of the complexes nowadays, many of these housing complexes, they ask you to segregate the waste, but when it reaches the landfill, from what I know, I don't know, I don't have any first hand experience, I've been told that it often gets sort of mixed up. So the whole process of segregation in some sense was defeated, because that is sort of taken care of there. So is those kind of things are happening over there, or sort of when you as a sort of company as well, when you are sort of giving your sort of hazardous things to these dumping places, are they sort of then pinpointing of I don't know, there's certain vendors who do come in and sort of segregate the waste as to what they sort of want?
See, we really don't have the access to their process,
Right.
what they do, because again, these are like confidential places,
Yeah.
and they're governed by different laws. So, uh, I mean, I can just say that our part of the
Of course.
responsibility,
Yeah.
gets over once we give that
Give them to them.
waste to them. What happens there, it of course, I've also read a few articles on it, and we have actually asked these questions to these people, because we thought that we are rather paying for the disposal, so we
Right.
have the
Yeah.
right to
Of
know
course. Yeah.
that what is happening to it.
Hmm.
So I don't think they have that kind of a transparency
Right.
there. But as a e-waste recycler, my part of the
Of course.
responsibility,
Of course.
it ends after this. But yeah, I think in my personal experience, in 8 years that I've been working here, I have seen those sites and those facilities also improving
Hmm.
quite drastically.
Right.
And the things that they used to do earlier, they've, of course, now they are not doing it like that. It is a much better mechanism they have now. But there might be a area of concern there. I can't deny that.
So the only reason I'm sort of pointing this forward is that because obviously you're doing so much work in sort of doing all this kind of stuff. Now, in some sense, because we talked about an aspect of a circular economy earlier on. So if some other aspect of society isn't doing their bit, that whole that whole move towards the circular economy may not be complete. Do you know where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
So just for the viewers as well, if we can define like a circular economy, or how you sort of look at it as well, because this might be a term that might be new for many of the people. So in common sense, when economists or when people in health talk about in environment talk about the circular economy, what do they actually mean, and how do you sort of look at a circular economy?
So circular economy means that you're recovering the resources which were made, which were used to make the product
Right.
on the very first place. So, for example, when we talk about electronics, there is always a question that why we are putting in these hazardous elements in the
first place.
manufacturing.
Yeah.
So that should be the first initiative, and we have a mechanism for that. So the government has RoHS standards. RoHS is reduction of hazardous substances.
Right.
So every electronic producer, manufacturer, they're given a particular set of specifications for each of these hazardous elements. They cannot exceed that limit in the manufacturing. Whereas because these products, they are made in a certain way, and that cannot be changed. But when it comes to value engineering, it is happening every year. The government, or it is happening globally. It's not for India. Globally, there is a set of specifications that come out, and these producers are asked to reduce the use of these hazardous substances in the manufacturing. So by circular economy, we means that whatever raw material is used to make a product, that should be extracted easily after the end of the life of the product, during the recycling process. So the need is to make these products in a way so that they're easily recyclable. Like you must have read about non-recyclable plastic. Because the recyclable things are not so much damaging. I mean, compared to the non-recyclables. So the first mandate is to actually make your products in a certain way so that they're easy to recycle. They have less or least amount of hazardous things while manufacturing. So in circular economy, we are extracting all those things which are there in the product, and they are reused in the manufacturing of the same products.
Okay.
So that just completes the entire loop from
the beginning
to the very end of the product.
After the consumption,
whatever is used, whatever is consumed in the product, it just comes back into the manufacturing of it.
Right.
And this is how the entire loop is closed. So for a circular economy, the manufacturer, producer, and recycler have to work very closely with each other. And that is why government is also promoting this initiative. And in my opinion, that's the only way to go. Only way to go, because these resources are extinct. So day by day, the rare earth elements and all these things, they are getting reduced.
Right.
So we have to find a way. Otherwise, we have to switch to the alternate products. You can't be making the we cannot be just looking at this happening in our times. As I said, this is a problem for our generation. This is the problem of modern generation. People who are actually there on the planet right now, it's up to them. So I think that's one real good way of doing it, that if you can't create a circular economy as a producer, if you can't bring back those material into the value chain again, then you should not be allowed to manufacture it as well. When a producer is able to sell its product door to door, through their distribution mechanism, they should also be able to buy it back or take it back after the end of the life through same mechanism. They have the capability to do it. Of course, the incentivization of the whole process has to somehow come from the consumers. Somehow.
I think many of these, and sorry to cut you off, but many of these sort of, like Apple, I think does it nowadays, right? When you sort of go, if you are to buy a new iPhone, so they'll ask you if
that is where, these rules help. That is why I said the government has done its bit.
Right.
They were supposed to like come out with a set of rules,
Mhm.
set of guidelines which are there for the people. And now who like how you follow it and in what manner, it just depends on the cost. Like Apple you have mentioned, and they
Yeah.
are doing a remarkable work in e-waste as well.
Hmm.
And also many companies have been motivated. So in last I think around 7 to 10 years, you've seen like all of the big brands, they have their
Yeah.
buyback mechanism,
Yeah.
and that is coming from the e-waste rules
From the
and the
yeah.
extended producer responsibility norm that has been set by the government of India.
Right.
So I think we have to talk about EPR.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I will just leave it here.
So what is EPR? So just for
So
yeah, what's the full form?
EPR is called extended producer responsibility.
Right. Okay.
Like you have a CSR, which is corporate
Huh.
social responsibility. A
Huh.
corporate has to spend a certain percentage of their profits for the
CSR. Yeah.
for the
Community, society. Yeah.
social purposes. So for in extended producer responsibility, the government is giving that responsibility to the producers, that you are the ones who are polluting
Right.
the society, by selling these products. So you are responsible to actually take it back and get it recycled.
Hmm.
So how they've done it is that they've taken out the data from all producers, that how much they have sold
Sold. Okay.
historically. So for example, if a life cycle of a mobile phone is 5 years, so they would call electronic producers that what is your sales number in 2017. If you have sold 1,000 units in 2017, that means those 1,000 units have become electronic waste.
Yeah.
Or e-waste mobile in 22.
Hmm.
So they have given targets to the producers in tandem with their sales figures.
Sales figures. Okay.
So right now it is at 60%. It started from 5% in 2017,
Oh wow.
2018.
Okay. Yeah.
And now the government is telling, so out of 1,000 phones that they've sold in 2015, they
You have to
have
recover
to
600 at
collect
least.
600 in 22 and get it recycled. So it is not phone against phone. It is not like the same brand
Of
phone.
course. Yeah.
Like it could be any phone,
Hmm.
but the number of phones collected and recycled for a producer should be 600, and that is why that and after collecting or after meeting the target, only they'll be allowed to sell their product in Indian
Hmm.
market.
Okay.
It is a very
For sure. Yeah.
brave move, and it has actually changed the whole dynamics in India. I think it wasn't even 3%
Oh.
before for the formal recycling percentage before EPR. So
Okay.
EPR has been a remarkable move.
Hmm.
Now, if you ask me whether EPR is being properly implemented, because again the producer has to find a recycler again has to go to the people to collect.
Hmm.
So that is happening. But then what we do as a recycling company, it just remains on our part of the consciousness. We can still be doing things which are
Hmm.
not ethical, and that is what has been happening,
Right.
unfortunately
Hmm.
happening as well. That there have been many unethical players who are just recycling the entire waste on papers and getting incentivized by the producers. But I think producers and recyclers, they somehow connive in this model, whereas there are exemplary models where the producers, they are actually paying good prices. They are paying what is required
Hmm.
to actually close the whole loop.
Right.
So if a producer is paying the right price, then a recycler can actually perform what is required of them. So EPR has been a remarkable move, and it has actually motivated a lot of people to enter into the business. So in India, there were only 180 units in 2015, and now we have over 600 formalized recyclers in the country.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So again, there are missing links. There are areas of concerns in this model as well. But it is definitely giving some kind of a direction, positive
So
direction.
one particular question I had on this, and this is just something I was thinking about, not really sort of sort of fledged out. Maybe you can sort of walk me through this. But how I was sort of thinking is I think to be someone who's recycling capacity in India right now when it comes to e-waste, you need a license from the government, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So do you think that is the right model to go ahead with it, or do you think it should be a little more free market so that incentivizes a lot more people to get, because the manner which I'm understanding it, if you require like a license or something of that sort, that might disincentivize many people to sort of even come in, because I might say there's more paperwork or something of that sort. How do you sort of look at it? Do you think it's a good move so that it's people who are actually responsible and people who are actually taking the next step are actually coming into the market, or do you think that thing can be looked into a little later when there are, let's say, a little more companies in the
No,
industry?
so we have evolved from that. So in 2008, the first guidelines were made.
Okay.
So it has no mention of the responsibilities, and there were not clearly rules.
Right.
These were just guidelines in 2008. Then they came out with the first set of rules, in 2011, and from there onward, 2016 they came out with EPR.
Yeah.
2018 it got modified, and 2022 now they've
Now the
come out
latest
with the refurbishment and everything. So I think it is a learning procedure for the government as well. I'm fortunate enough to, I am at various meetings with the top stakeholders in the government.
Mhm.
So I see that, they are learning. They're still learning. They cannot be,
And with the thing with technology and like electronics is that it's an ever evolving thing.
Yeah.
So that what we might think is like present and like poignant today might simply be redundant tomorrow in some sense. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Like, when I started e-waste, so the CRTs, cathode ray tubes, these were a huge problem.
Yeah.
But now we don't have CRT TVs anymore.
Yeah.
These are just gone. Now we have LEDs and LCDs. So they come with a different set of challenges. And the CRT televisions, they had their different set of challenges.
For sure.
So yes, it keeps happening. But I think regulatory work is important in this area. So that is why paperwork and getting the permission is important, because first of all, you have to show your skills. You need to have that proper technology to be able to handle e-waste or certain categories of
Yeah.
e-waste. So that is why regulatory work is, in my opinion, is mandatory. You cannot, allow anyone to deal in such kind of
course.
products formally. Informally, if if it happens, it happens. Of course, there is always an effort to kind of curb it. But I think the way it is at the moment, that you need to set up a proper recycling facility, you need to have proper procedures and proper downstream, to manage this e-waste. I think it's absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely right. I think it is the way to go.
Right. So something I think about, and this might sort of be a little more philosophical, and how I sort of look at sustainability right now. Even these frameworks that we are putting in place are good and sort of trying to curb however much technological advancements we are making, so that it doesn't cause as much of a harm, so sort of in society. But don't you think in some sense it's already a lost battle, because we're always in the step of creating more and more and more, so that in some sense is always causing some sort of detriment to the environment and the things that are around us. So is, like, I don't know, this is just maybe just a thought experiment, or like a thought that I've sort of sprung into my head, that will this always be the case, or will we in some sense find a way, I don't know, maybe if it's within technology as well, or sort of move away from the will we always be in, as you were talking about, the 15-20% that e-waste is sort of growing in India, do you think that is always going to be the case, or do you think civilizationally there will come a point where people will sort of move away, because of recent times as well? I don't know, this might sound really off the cuff, but people through COVID, when there was an increase in screen time, or perhaps an increase in let's say the use of technology, there were many people who started getting disenfranchised with technology. Now, how I'm sort of looking at it, and this might be completely idealistic and this might never happen, but do you ever envisage that there will be a societal wide movement ever that will sort of want us to, if not completely go against technology, at least diminish our dependence on technology as we have it today in some sense?
See, I don't really see it happening. We've seen instances where people, they want to turn off the screen time. So that's like getting off one electronic, and then they would tell their Alexa to play meditation music. So the dependency on electronics, it does not vanish.
Right.
It just, that you had a screen time,
You just
and then
transfer from one to another.
suddenly you want to relax, so you'll play a nice music on your speaker, but you're using something.
Right.
So that because ultimately these products are made or developed to comfort you, you know,
Of
give you
course.
give
Yeah.
you that luxury. I think uh, there is no electronic in the world on which your life is based or dependent completely. It is always providing you that comfort and that lifestyle which is desirable, and that is why these products are used. So I don't think the use of these products can be will decrease, because new products will come in. Now
Of
you
course.
have VR things, the
Yeah. Yeah.
virtual realities, and which weren't there like
Of
even
course.
5 years back. it
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
wasn't really there. And I think this we've seen now, air purifiers. So
Yeah.
if you go into the air purifier sales in Delhi in last 3-4 years, I think it has shown tremendous
It's
amount of
insane.
growth. Like there is
Yeah.
no other product which has shown. I mean, percentage wise, I'm talking about. The number of people, because of the conditions.
Of
So
course.
times change, there are different times, different needs will come up. So I don't think there will be a time where people can retract to not
Right.
using electronics.
Right.
But the I mean, the effort, the conscious effort should be to at least be responsible enough to dispose it in an
In a
environment
responsible manner. Yeah.
friendly manner.
Yeah.
You should be guilty that I somehow feel guilty when I'm using water even. But that depends on, as a person, or my religion, because
Yeah.
in my religion, Jainism, there's a lot of emphasis on little microorganisms
Of
that
course.
we kill or we hurt without our
Knowing.
knowledge.
Yeah.
So that is why in Jainism there's a thing called knowingly or unknowingly. If I have ever hurt someone, so that unknowingly part is that which is that which for which I could be more conscious
Of
about.
course. Yeah.
So even if I spill a little water, I really feel guilty as a human being that
Yeah.
it wasn't necessary.
Of course.
So first thing is, of course, you should use as much as is necessary for you. I mean, luxuries, they are endless, and so of course I could be having like 10 different mobile phones. I could upgrade my iPhone every year. The Apple wants me to do it.
They're even taking your iPhone back.
Yeah, of course they
Yeah,
want
yeah.
you to
Of course.
just
Of
buy
course.
the new
Yeah.
product. And so it is up to me, for myself, if my phone is working fine, I won't change it, until. So this is where it just depends on the person to person. And when we are building this common consciousness, when this awareness is there, so at some point it would be cool. Like, if a very, very general example, if I give you, so earlier times, people with the cash in their pockets, they were seen as studs. These are the people that they have the cash money.
Right.
And now if you see somebody using so much of cash, you would think that this guy is not doing
He's living in the Stone Age or something.
no, he's doing something wrong. Maybe
Right. Right. Yeah.
he has a illegal something
Yeah.
business, or so and I think there will be a time where the people who are using cash, they'll be seen as villains
Right.
in the society. Like children will talk to each other that your why are you carrying so much cash? That would be so.
So you'll think the same thing will happen with like electronics, maybe? No, maybe with how they sort of recycle the electronics, or how do you sort of look at it?
So I also see that that so there will be a time, because the again the new generation that is coming up these days, they are born within these initiatives around them, happening around them. So they would develop as those human beings who would have that, like the Japanese people I
the fans,
told you
yeah.
about, because they are born and raised like that. They cannot leave a place before cleaning
Of course.
cleaning it up. Whereas as Indians, we would just leave, even if we are in India.
Yeah.
We won't clean up our country,
Let alone
forget
another.
about
Yeah.
doing it at some other place. So I think there's going to be a time when people will really look down to the people who have access of anything. This will be a new time of minimalism. I think it is cool now. Definitely sustainability is cool. Carrying a bag for the grocery store is definitely cool. So that is how the opinion of the society changes. And I think
And that will have then trickle down effects as to sort of people then,
absolutely, absolutely. So anybody who's carrying more than one mobile phone will not be looked up.
right.
Like people
He's not
will,
an investment man.
like you would like to ask them that why are you using like two phones
Multiple,
when you
yeah.
can do with one?
Right. Yeah.
So like, and automatically when that the other person would feel embarrassed,
Yeah.
and that is how the whole the society changes.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. So your Twitter bio reads entrepreneur and social worker. In some sense, and many in the business community might sort of see those as like antithetical to each other. But I think I've sort of seen you in an interview where you've sort of talked about, I think when you were asked that many people wouldn't want to go into waste industry, or because perhaps they don't sort of see it as profit maximizing. So but don't, and you were talking about this earlier as well, that the main motive you have with your business obviously is to make money for sure, but your main aim is to sort of do good. And then if you are doing good with your business in whatever capacity that may be, money will follow. So can you sort of untangle that? Because many people perhaps who are aspiring entrepreneurs, or perhaps just from the outside as well, and how they sort of look at the business community, those things often in their head don't go hand in hand. So can you sort of delineate on that? I know you've talked about it earlier as well in this conversation, but
See, in my opinion, the
what is
uh,
the main aim of a business? Is it to
see
make money, or is it to do
see
is
of
it to
course
solve a
of
particular
course
thing?
of course, if I am working, if I am into business, my aim is to make money
Yes.
primarily.
Huh.
you know that should be the, because only if I make money I can help the
Yeah.
society, or I can help my cause.
Hmm.
If I stop making money, I'll at some point I'll have to shut it down, and then it's not good for me or anyone else.
Anyone's.
So firstly, you have to find a revenue model. I'm talking about entrepreneurial sense. There are other initiatives, people dedicate their life to other
Of course.
things, and
Yeah.
that is completely different.
Hmm.
The so there is no revenue from cleaning up of the streets. That's why it's the government's job.
Hmm.
There is no revenue. So whenever there is no revenue from such things, either a government or an NGO or
Of course.
somebody else
Has
should
to
do it.
come in. Yeah.
If you are a business entity, if you are an entrepreneur, if you have a business model, I think that should always have revenues.
Hmm.
That is why your first question was why e-waste, because I saw revenue opportunity. I say there were challenges, but at the same time there were opportunities. I could do things different from other people. I could see things which others couldn't at that time. So that is why I think as a entrepreneur, your first focus should be on the revenue part. But then when it comes to taking decisions about sustainability, or decisions about your ethical standards,
Framework.
the
Yeah.
ethical dilemma that sometimes comes around it, that you have to mentally you have to be strong, and you have to be strong in your heart to take over those challenges. This
Right.
is where you choose.
Hmm.
But you can never choose between not making money or
Of
making
course.
money.
Of
You
course.
have to make money
Yeah.
for anything to be sustainable, to for anything to be substantial. We are sitting here talking about it because we have been generating revenues from
Yeah.
the very first day.
Right. So another thing that really comes to my mind, and this is another from an interview, I'm forgetting the name, where you sort of talked about this. And over there, you sort of mentioned that from a young age as well, you were sort of not really drawn towards books as much as you were fascinated by people who you would meet, be it relatives, friends, uncles, whoever it was, who had like a curiosity, and how they used to think, or maybe just learn from their experiences. And you've sort of mentioned that you think that it's the individuals who rather have a curiosity who are able to create change in society. Do you still believe in that? And if so, like how? Like, can you expand on that thought?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I think uh, the reason why I was able to explore this area is because I went out and I talked to the people. So even when I was in UK, I would go to a recycler and I would ask that, what are you doing with these things? And that is where the idea it originated. It came into my mind, so.
Yeah.
I think yes. I'm not saying that this is the right kind of, or this is the only right approach. It works for me
Right.
because I am in a space where I'm interacting with a lot of people, and the more people you connect with, you get to know about their challenges, the way they think. So all of these things can be implemented in life and also work.
Right.
So and of course the interview that you're mentioning is a little bit old. So now, after that, I have
Evolved a little
read a lot of books as well. As well, I think there came a point in my life where I was like done with people and more into books. But I think that there's a different level of intellect that you develop when you are a social person. And it just so see when I go and meet somebody, so the first thing that they see is not my company or my recycling facility. They don't even talk about recycling.
Yeah.
So the first impression what they have about my company is from me.
Yeah.
So how personally what my passion is, that I have to deliver in front of them so that they are on my side.
Yeah.
So you need to have that kind of skills, and it can only come up with interacting with
Of course.
maximum number of people from different domains of the society, people from different backgrounds,
All walks of life.
all
basically.
walks of life. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So this is like maybe like some sort of, because you've sort of been in this industry for a while now, closing to a decade now. There would be a lot of young entrepreneurs or people who would have ideas in their head, but probably are looking for opportunity to implement, or probably still thinking, should I be doing it or should I not be doing it? Are there some sort of tips or sort of some things that you've learned through your entrepreneurial journey that you'd like to share for perhaps aspiring entrepreneurs or people who just have an idea in their head, even if it's not business related, if it's like to sort of send some government patent or any of this anything that they'd have in their head? Can they learn something from your journey? Are there some tips you'd like to share?
See, I would just coming back to the point that I never worked for valuations. A lot of good ideas we see. So many everybody's talking about startups and how these companies, they have this multi-million valuations and $1 billion valuations and all of those things. I think that is exciting. That is one part of the work that you should do. But for me, I wanted to create some value
Yeah.
from my work, not just the valuation. So that never wanted to convince like 10 people in a conference room so that they pay me
Right.
or they value me. Rather, I wanted to be valued for my work. So it gives me an immense amount of satisfaction that when I talk to someone, they ask me, what do you do? So and then they never ask me that how much money have you made
Right.
in these 8 years. It is about the quality of
The work you've done. Yeah.
work I've done, and it is satisfying. That's doing something which is, of course, it is giving me a fair amount of money as well. But at the same time, I'm able to contribute
course.
to the society. So that is a different. And when you talk to people and when you get that reaction, this is where I feel fulfilled. That
Yeah.
some part of me, it just feels so happy about it. That my work is being valued. And of course, always there's going to be, when you value your work, there's someone else also is going to value it.
Of course.
So my idea behind setting up of a business model or anything is that I don't go for valuations. Go for quality work. Valuations and all these multi-million things will follow.
Yeah.
And this is what I have learned from my experience, because the kind of success stories that we generally see is of those 0.1% people, whereas there are 99.9% chances of failure if you don't have a solid business model,
Of course.
and if you don't have a valuable work behind you. So you have to choose. You could be you could be a genius in that 0.1% category, or for a commoner like me, we have to work through the space of life and
Yeah.
build up something, and it takes
Time, of course.
time and effort. And I want to do many such initiatives, and not just in e-waste recycling. There are other aspects of human life that I want to touch with I mean, whatever time I have here.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Akshay, this was fascinating. I think whoever would have been listening would have taken so much away about e-waste and just generally how you sort of think about business, sustainability, and so many other things. Just before we leave, are there any sort of parting thoughts that you have to leave the listeners with, the viewers with, or just whatever, where they can find Namo and how they can perhaps contribute if there is any sort of capacity? Because I know you guys are B2B right now, B2B business, but in some sense, how they can sort of push this idea of like just being responsible
No,
with your
we are
e-waste
not
generate
just into B2B. We have
okay
been doing a lot of awareness and community awareness and
as well.
collection
Yeah.
drives. We are amongst the first few companies who started this
Yeah.
in India after the EPR laws came in. So we have been doing door-to-door collection, but whereas it is a little difficult for us to go to door-to-door, and that's why we are
Hmm.
hosting community awareness and collection drives.
Okay.
So we are empaneled with over 100 societies in and RWAs in around NCR, where we are regularly going for the community collection drives.
Hmm.
So there we work with a lot of children, women and other stakeholders, and we are actually going onto their doorsteps and collecting e-waste and also paying them on spot. I mean,
Right.
whatever, we cannot pay as much as a kabadi wala can,
Right.
but of course we are not much behind it. We are
Hmm.
just 20-30% less
Hmm.
we can pay to compare to
But
kabadi
if
wala.
you tell them the message and your ideology,
Yes,
yeah.
and that is why people are really
Hmm.
associating with this. So these awareness collection drives, which we would hardly get a couple of things initially, now we are getting at least 1,000 kgs
Oh wow,
from every collection drive. So that has been
a big positive.
a
Yeah.
big positive. So for the audience, I mean, my parting message would be that this is just a little bit of effort that you can do. Why, when you buy a new product, you do a due diligence on it. You would ask your relatives, your friends, that which phone
Phone to buy.
is
Yeah.
better, which is cheaper, and which has a longer battery life. So similar knowledge, you should have when you're disposing these products. It is, and luckily, we are in India, and there are so many solution providers. It's not just me or Namo eWaste. There are many solution providers. But as a responsible citizen, you should be disposing your any kind of waste in a responsible manner, and that just needs a little bit of Google search,
Yeah. That's
and that's it.
it.
That's it. A toll-free number will pop up, so that really doesn't cost you much. It's just that and if you start doing it, like, just try it out, and it would
Yeah.
be really satisfying. Like, it is soul satisfying
For sure, for sure.
when you
Or
get.
even so many of the other, like, this is something I've seen as well. There's so many of the, because we've just been using so many electronics. Every household has so many electronics. There's some electronics which is just kept in the cupboards and no one uses them.
So
So
we have
even
done a survey.
yeah.
Average Indian household, 12 kgs of e-waste, where
Oh
four
wow.
members of the family, and that is idle. 12 kgs, it's like it goes unnoticed. It is kept somewhere in the form of a DVD player,
Or
format, or a
yeah.
microwave, which you thought, like, you got a new one, you thought that
Old
you will
steam
repair
iron.
it,
Yeah.
old steam irons, and all those things, which are just not in existence. Nobody knows where it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if you keep like, just scroll through your mind, you'll pull out those things, and it would be around 10 kgs in your house as well.
Oh wow. See, so there you go. There are just some things that we can keep in mind next time we are sort of disposing of our e-waste. Akshay, thank you so much for coming on. This was an absolute pleasure. Hope we can do this sometime again in the future as well. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Ishan. It was a really wonderful session for me as well. Look
Thank
forward to more.
Great. Yeah. See you guys. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
tuning in.
Thank you.
Bye.